Hello everyone, my name is Jeff Neville and welcome to Selective Imagery. Welcome to Thanks for the Memories, Part 21. Hello, this is Jeff Neville for Selective Imagery and another episode of Thanks for the Memories. And today we're going to be talking about the Minolta A, made by Kogaku Seiko. Bottom of the box actually has a decal with the serial number of the body and the lens notated on it, which is kind of neat. But you don't want to see the box, but it is neat when you do get one with a box. And I'll give you a quick visual of what the camera looks like. Here you go. Here's the front view. Here's the bottom view. The side view. The rear view. And the top view. And we'll get into, all these things with the camera. But this camera originated in 1955. It was their first 35mm fixed lens rangefinder camera. It had 3 versions of this. The first one had a 2-blade Koran flicker shutter, which was good for half a second to 1/200th of a second. The second, and had B mode as well. The second version, which is the one that I own, had an optical shutter, which was rated for 1 second to 1/300th of a second, plus B. And the third version, released in 1956, had a Citizen MX shutter, which was also 1 second to 1/300th of a second, plus B. This particular camera is equipped with a Kogaku Rokkor 45mm f3.5 lens. Okay. This lens was a 4-element lens. The f-stop range was f3.5 to f22. The first Japanese camera to use what they called a linear aperture scale, and it was an entry-level camera for the more advanced photographer, is how they advertised it. And it was ahead, really was ahead quite a bit of the more expensive and popular American cameras of the day. Now, this A-series camera eventually progressed to the A2, the A3, the A5, and then finally the AL series that was marketed alongside the Hymatics that eventually came out. The camera body is a lightweight precision die-cast aluminum alloy body. It has a single thumb stroke film advance lever that cocks the shutter as well as advances the film. It has a coupled superimposed image rangefinder. It's easy to focus. It has a square pink focusing square in the center. Makes it easier to align the 2 images to obtain your focusing. And it's really, really handy. And the film advance lever, I'm going to just show it to you here. What a long throw. That's a long way. That is a long way. Takes a little getting used to. But anyway, we'll go over a little bit of the features on the camera. We'll start with the front. Okay. Let me hold it sideways here. So you have 2 scales. This bottom scale is tied in, is your focusing in feet. the skinny dial above it is your aperture selection. You're going to need to like put your finger on and hold the focusing ring from moving while you turn the aperture, because if you don't, they're both going to move together. Okay, so you hold down the focusing section and select your aperture. And you've got this little appendage here on the focusing wheel to make it easier to focus your lens, which it does help. You got some models have like ears on them, on each side for adjusting your focus. Most of them only have a single protrusion to make it easier for you to grab it with your finger and focus. You have your PC socket over here. You have a plate for helping you with determining your depth of field, depending on your f-stop. You have a sync switch, M for bulbs, X for electronic flash, and then you have another lever that can be confusing that you slide in a downward position, and you can see the letter M. And what that's all about is if you're using an M flash bulb, you set your sync to the M position, you slide this lever down, and then it bounces right back up, and it syncs. It's a leaf shutter, so any shutter speed you have can fire the flash. If you're using a F-type flash bulb, then you do not. You leave it in M mode up here, but you do not push this lever down if you have a F-type flash bulb. And obviously, if you have an X sync electronic flash, the lever goes in the downward position. Okay. So this is your viewfinder. This is your rangefinder window. This is your viewfinder window when you look at the front. We'll go to the bottom. You got your tripod socket. This is a button that you press and hold when you want to rewind your film. This is your film counter is on the bottom instead of the top. So when you load the film, you normally take you take a picture, you advance it 3 times. So this is an incremental film counter. So it counts how many images you've taken. So you take that. Doesn't matter what this is set when you load the film. You take your 3 shots, then you put your finger on this dial that's serrated, which most of them are, and you rotate it until you're at the number 0, and then when you take your next shot, it tells you that you've taken 1 picture. Okay, side view, you have the release for the back of the camera. Okay, you have to pull that down. This is not a hinged camera back. The camera back will fall in your lap or on the floor if you don't put your hand behind it when you pull this lever down, because the back just comes right off. And we'll do that in a little bit. Here's the seam. Seam on this side. Okay. When you look at the rear of the camera, you just have the viewfinder. The top view of the camera, you have your rewind knob. So when you want to rewind the film, you actually have to lift the knob up and turn it in the direction of the arrow. And at the same time, you have to depress the rewind button on the bottom. So you have to hold this in with your finger and, grab the knob with the other hand and rotate until the film is back in the canister again. Okay. You then have your cold shoe. Some manufacturers will call it a cold shoe. Others will call it an accessory shoe. Obviously, you can put a a flash unit that just has, you know, basically a plastic bottom, and sometimes it'll have like a ball bearing, a little metal button on the bottom that gives it a little friction when you slide it in here, so it kind of holds in place well, but there's no electrical contacts at all. Some camera models make optional make some optional exposure meters. They did not make one for this camera. And you have your shutter speed dial on the top. You rotate that to select your shutter speed, line it up with the dot, and your shutter release button. And that's about it. When you look at the manual for this camera, there's not a long list of accessories. You basically have a Minolta Junior BC flash, which has a fan out type reflector, you know, that you open it up, and typical of flashes from this era. And you have a series of filters that you can buy for the camera, primarily a UV filter, a red, green, yellow, and orange filter, many of those used for black and white photography. And that's about it. In 1962, now Chiyoda Kogaku would change the name, its company name, to Minolta Camera KK, and then later on, just everybody just went by Minolta Camera Company. So that happened in 1962. I'm going to take the back off and show you that in a second. But the shutter speeds, like I said, are only 1/300th of a second. In the manual, they talk about what film types to use, basically rated from ASA or ISO 5 to 250. And just a notation, the first model had serrations on the edge of the film advance lever, which made it a little bit easier to, you know, grab it with your thumb and advance it. And here's how quiet it. This is at 1 second. Now, I would recommend, what I'm starting to do now is use a different type of, tried out a different type of film the other day. I'll let you know how it works out. It's a Ilford 200 speed SFX 200 black and white film, and I wanted to try that because, you know, if I'm doing street photography during the day, you know, I'm doing it, let's just say I'm out at 7 in the morning, 8 in the morning, and it may stay out till, you know, almost lunchtime. And I don't want a film that's overly sensitive to light. I don't want to be having to shoot, you know, at f/22 all the time. And like I said, you have minimal control over your shutter speed on these old cameras. Many cameras, even in the early 60s, you were lucky if you had one that had a 1/1000th of a shutter speed setting on the dial. Many were still 1/500th of a second, and so they don't really lend themselves to using the Ilford HP5 or the Tri-X 400 speed film, unless you're using it, you know, late in the day, early in the evening, you know, taking those types of photography shots, in which case you want a faster speed film. But I wanted to try something that was something in the middle, a little bit more than 100 and definitely not 400. So I'll let you know how that works out. But anyway, I'm going to pop the back off of this, and like I said before, it'll drop off in your lap. You pull the lever down, and I will put my hand underneath, and voila, the back pops off. And here's the back. Here's the inside. You know, nothing unusual, nothing special. What was nice about, and then when you go to put it on, okay, you see you got an edge here that lays in. You lay that that in, close it, push that in. That's it. It's nice. It's nice when you had the cameras that didn't have foam, didn't have seals in them, because they were just made where they were light tight. Why we got lazy and had to make it so you had to have all these seals in the camera, beyond me. A little bit more ingenuity that you had in the old cameras, and you wouldn't have to worry about seals. And we can get into the advantages or disadvantages of rangefinder cameras versus SLRs. Obviously, SLRs took off like a rocket. Eventually hurt a lot of camera companies like Leica, who were late to the game to have any kind of SLRs. But they have their place. They're small. They fit in your pocket. And interchangeable lens models are nice. The lenses are small. They're easy to focus. You got to deal with frame lines. That takes a little getting used to. But you know what? On the positive side, you buy a 60s, 70s, 80s model 35 millimeter camera, especially if it's in the 60s and 70s. Good chance the mirror foam is all dissolved and broken up all inside the camera. It may or may not be easy to clean and replace. You got foam in the back that you got to replace, and you don't have that kind of stuff with that, because obviously you don't have a mirror in a rangefinder camera. So, and they're much quieter. If you have, especially you have a Leica, you hardly hear the shutter at all when you push the shutter. So there are some advantages, size, weight, convenience, and durability. And they're all mechanical. They don't have electronics in them. I would argue that any mechanical camera properly cared for, especially if it's a high-end camera, a Leica or a Nikon or a Canon, something high-end, you take care of it, you can pass it down to your children, they can pass it down to their children. But anyway, I rant too much. But that's about it, for this camera. I hope you enjoyed the video. I hope you come back for the next time. And as I like to say, enjoy life, capture some of it. Go out there, no matter what gear you use. Take a few pictures. Have a good time. Until next time, take care, everybody. Hey, everybody. If you enjoyed this video, hey, give me a thumbs up. Leave a comment. Always nice to hear from you folks. And if you haven't subscribed, consider it. I would appreciate it if you would. But get out there and shoot and have a good time. Take care. Till the next Thanks for the Memories edition.